a reward for the Phoenix media today, Bo Brock. In the house, the Arizona Cardinals revamped inside linebacker duo, Kyzir White and Mac Wilson took the mics. Anything notable from their presser today?
No Mac. It was just Kyzir solo. And we just got word we're going to get to talk to friend of the program, Greg Dortch, on Thursday. So they're going to roll out a couple players this week. But Kyzir White, it was great. I mean, it was a smaller press group, so a little bit more intimate of a setting, and we could ask him. It was just kind of rapid fire. And we pretty much got all of our questions answered. As Ozzy's saying, I'm giving off 2023 Eagle vibes. One of the questions I asked Kyzir was there any similarities between, the Cardinals 2024 offseason and when he was there for the Eagles in 2022? He didn't want to compare them, but, once the question kind of got asked a couple more times today, he said, there's similarities between the two teams as far as you've got hungry roster. Of course, you had a high attendance of players showing up for voluntary workouts. And, Danny Sarek said, where have you seen that before? He's like, the 2022 Eagles. I mean, there's guys, there's self-starters on this team that don't have to be told by the coaching staff, hey, you need to be here. It's guys who want to be here and help this team get to the next level, become relevant again and win football games. But, a couple other things stood out from Kyzir's availability. Asked about the offense. Obviously he's on the defensive side. You and I talked to Jaden Davis last week, and we were like, hey, it's I got to imagine going in the season, opposing teams are going to have to pick their poison. You got James Conner, you got Trey McBride, you've got the three wide receivers and Kyler Murray. And Kyzir White's already seeing that from the Cardinals offense through OTAs. Here's him speaking on that.
Is a rising tight end. I think he's gonna be in that top 3 conversation real soon. You got James Conner, who he a workhorse. Michael Wilson had a great rookie year. Just for O-line, they're putting all the pieces together, and I think it's gonna be a show to watch.
Cards offense is gonna be a show to watch. He spoke on he was asked who stood out on the offensive side of the football, and his first name out of his mouth, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Imagine that.
And then, talking about the quarterback, Kyler Murray, said he sees similarities between Kyler and Mahomes a little bit, just their ability to extend plays, make special plays, but really said that Kyler, he believes he's poised for a big year. And then when kind of asked, you mentioned Mac Wilson, the new duo that they have on that defensive side of the football, like Seth's article for ESPN, they're recognizing that, they're getting a little disrespected. They're not showing up on the best inside linebacking duos that are out there in some of the rankings. And this is what Kyzir kind of speak more on that disrespect.
Yeah, I feel like they sleeping on us. Max sent me something like 2 weeks ago. I guess they put out, top linebacker duos or whatever, and we was nowhere to be found. So, when we in there working out, running, or retired or something, that's definitely in our head. We ain't trying to prove, nobody wrong, ourselves right, but, that's a little disrespectful because I ain't going to say too much. Yeah, I'm just,
this unit does not have household names on it, period. It doesn't even have household names that maybe had success with other teams like Kyzir White. To know who Kyzir White is, you have to be in the weeds with pro football and be more than just a casual, as the kids would say. Like, outside of Budda Baker, most people don't know many players on the Cardinal defense. That does not mean anything as it relates to the success that they can have. Like, we have seen it time and time again. The Cardinals brought J.J. Watt into Arizona to be a coach on the field in his 30s to help kind of mold and gel everybody together. That did not work, inevitably. He got injured. The team wasn't very good. You have as many big-name players as you want, but for whatever reason, it may not work out. I would rather go this route of, it's a young team. It's the second year under the same head coach and defensive coordinator. And I just happen to think Jonathan Gannon's a kingmaker, not only with defensive backs, with defensive production in general. Yeah. I think the biggest indictment of what Philadelphia has done is, with no Jonathan Gannon and more talent last year, they had an influx of talent. They had a top 7 defensive tackle that contended for defensive rookie of the year. They had a bunch of guys who were supposed to pop. They were unwatchable defensively at the end of last year. So I'm not going to sit here and say like the Cardinals can be very viable defensively. I just think it's a lot to ask September and October. But if you told me, if we took a finite stat and said the Cardinals have a top 10 defense between weeks 12 to 17, 18, or weeks 14 to 18, it would not surprise me. Yeah. Because again, like I feel like Kyzir White is productive in his role because he's talented, but he's bought in, and Jonathan Gannon knows what the hell to do with him. So this unit, the offense should be fully baked and ready to rock and roll come week 1. Yeah. The C unit, you may have to leave in the oven for a couple more weeks to be able to really see folks like come into their own, that's fine. This is year 2 of this rebuild.
Yeah, but one of the key parts that he mentioned today, he was asked about the rebuilt defensive front seven, primarily the defensive line.
Yeah.
And Kyzir White was on that 2022 Eagles team that had a huge defensive line rotation. It was massive. Featured Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis. They added Ndamukong Suh by the end of the year. I mean, we're not talking about the pass rushers because we know the Arizona Cardinals are moving with the status quo as far as the pass rushers, but Kyzir White knows what to look for as far as, the teeth of the defense. And I think that he has a lot of belief in how they rebuilt it. He said, they got bigger and stronger on their defensive front. And I think the biggest difference between 23 and 24 for the Arizona Cardinals is the opposing offense's ability to just impose their will on them up front, to where it doesn't matter what you have on the second level. It doesn't matter what you really have on the third level. Sure, like that's your safety net. That's going to keep you from like going in the end zone. But as far as gashing you for 5 to 6 yards a clip in the run game, I think, the additions of Justin Jones, who Kyzir White came into the league with in LA with the Chargers, along with Nichols and Darius Robinson, and then the second year Dante Stills, like it is huge, huge improvement that just in itself should give this Cardinals defense the ability to get off the field. And I know when you look, like, especially since we're months removed from the season, and sometimes like your memory fades on that, but like if the defense did at times have the ability to get a couple stops in a row, and at times during the season last year was maybe its strength, to where like the final numbers showed like they gave up the second most points in the NFL and had a tough time, getting off the field. But earlier in the season, they did make some stops. They did get some turnovers. They did have TFLs, and they did have sacks. And I think that that's more of what they can be, more so than what they were at the end of the year, where they were just huge liability.
Yeah, it's hard to even judge the defense at the end of the year because I'm outside of some defensive backs. Like the front seven was not.
They didn't even have Kyzir White. I mean,
right.
He was their leading tackler. He goes out with the bicep tear. We know about the defensive line. And, by the end of it, you had Josh Woods and Chris Barnes, starting as your starting inside backers. And then, as you mentioned, the secondary, it was patchwork.
It wasn't really an opportunity to fully judge this unit. And again, like we're still holding out hope for Zaven Collins, but this is a big year for the second year defenders under Jonathan Gannon. Like you got a redshirt year for Garrett Williams. He's got to step up. Looks like he has. Ojulari, it probably has the most pressure on of any singular defensive player, given the position, the lack of investment at that position. Budda Baker's in a contract year, a whole bunch of new corners, right? Jalen Thompson, hopefully he can stay healthy the entire season and double down on what was a career year for him under Jonathan Gannon. I am of the opinion, like, unless they look unwatchable to begin the year, like I'm going to give this defense all the grace in the world to start the year. Like I understand that Kyzir is adamant they're being slept on, and I would love to be pleasantly surprised. But here's what I know. The Cardinals scored over 30 points one time last year. Coincidentally, it was against the Eagles, right? That has to be the norm more often than not for this team to hang in until the defense finds itself. Like within the first 8 games, the Cardinals, I think, need to put up 30 points half of those games. And if you do, you got an opportunity to win those games. But you ought to be averaging 3 to 4 touchdowns a game and a couple field goals to get you to where you want to be at the end of the year. Because I just, you look at the roster, top to bottom, Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen to open up the season, and you got Jordan Love mixed in there at Lambeau Field, and Justin Herbert, and it's Brock Purdy's offense. It's tough, man. So I'm just going to sit back on NFL Sundays, watch the game, and take it in defensively, and just hopefully be able to cherry pick some wins. Because I look at The finale against the Seahawks, that defense played outstanding that game. They lost that game. The game against Houston, picking off CJ 3 times in the second half, outstanding. Times against Philadelphia in the second half, terrific job. There are times last year, even in losses, where the defense was ahead of schedule. I'm looking for more performances like that.
Yeah, they didn't have the ability, especially in second halves, to put the opposing offense in third and long.
No.
They just had so many third and manageable, maybe didn't even get to third down most of the time because they were able to just pick up another first on first and second down. And now they do. Like, they've got guys who are geared up to slow down the run, and Justin Jones and Darius Robinson. And then with the, healthy Kyzir White jumping in there, like, they should be way better, vastly improved at that spot. So, like, I'm not saying, they're going to be a top 10 group, far from it, but can they sneak up and maybe get inside the top 20 as a defensive unit? I think that's realistic.
That'd be an unbelievable occurrence. And I get your postseason tickets now. If the Cardinals have a top 20 defense by the end of the year, we can go ahead and mark ourselves on the road or potentially hosting a home playoff game. Great occurrence if that happens.